Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone. My team won. Hi, everyone. They won.
Finally.
Shut your faces. Finally. It's only game 2.
Oh, they finally scored is really what I meant.
Yay.
Sorry about that.
All right. We'll get into the Caps a little bit. We'll start with the Cowboys. How about them Cowboys?
Jera.
Oh, man. Boy, God, that game stunk last night.
Didn't see a snap because I was doing the Caps game.
Oh, that's right.
But yeah, it was typical Chargers ending though.
Yeah.
That team
They're
choke
maddening.
away. I'm not shocked at all.
You know, we sit there and complain that we haven't had a quarterback in a long time, and all they do is have quarterbacks, and they still don't win.
They have had 3 of them, and they let one of them walk for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we're fine.
Like, they've had Rivers to Herbert.
And even add in, they had Breeze.
They had Breeze, but
they
he
let
got
him
hurt. That's complicated.
No.
He got hurt, and they thought this isn't going to go well, and he's short. So we're going to,
there's
move
also
on.
The other
I don't blame them for that. He had an injury that most people, Miami didn't sign him because of the injury. They thought he wasn't going to be able to play. That's why.
Right.
He was supposed to go to the Dolphins, and he didn't. He ended up going to the Saints. He took a chance on the Saints. Took a chance on him. Worked out.
Right.
Yeah, worked out.
What I was going to say, though, was not only did they draft Rivers, he wasn't the quarterback that they wanted or that wanted to play for them. They had Eli at first. They actually got a better quarterback than Eli.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And still haven't won a Super Bowl, by the way.
Still won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Haven't won. The Chargers.
I don't even know what they can complain about because they have a quarterback.
Right.
Like, I think if you, like, the teams like us that have been searching and can't ever seem to get one, or one that lasts any more than a year or two, it's not a flash in the pan, or mess up the ones that are actually pretty decent, like Cousins. Like, our fan base has got to sit there and go, when are we going to get our Herbert?
Right.
Or Rivers?
Sure.
When? They've had it.
It's them and the Packers and the Packers have at least won one with each of their franchise
49ers,
guys.
too.
49ers, yeah.
Largely.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they had
legends back to back. Montana to Young. Then they went through,
the gauntlet a little bit.
Yeah, the gauntlet a little bit. Then they got Alex Smith. It turned out to be pretty good. Took a while. Turned out.
Years, yeah.
Then they got Kaepernick, who was actually really good.
Got him to
for
Super Bowl.
Yeah. And then now they just kind of can't get it wrong. Like, doesn't matter what they do.
Garoppolo, Purdy.
Yeah,
Beathard.
just kind of can't get it wrong.
Right.
Can't get it wrong. Purdy. We don't even know if Lance is good or not.
Yeah.
We don't even know. But the Chargers, they're a whole different bucket of hatred, I think, for them, because they don't have the excuse of not having a top-tier quarterback and haven't had one for 20-plus years.
Yeah.
They do, and they can't win anyway.
Right. Correct.
They're hard to watch.
Yes.
I don't know how that coach is still
Especially
there.
because their skill position
They're hard
players,
to watch.
Their skill position players are pretty good, too. Like, it's not like they have nothing there.
They're impossible to cover. They're huge.
Right.
They're a basketball team. They run a basketball team. They lost Mike Williams, so that was bad.
Right.
And Eckler's been back and forth. Their offensive line's average at best, and their defense is also maddening because they've got 2 or 3 game-breaking players, and they don't get crazy stops, or they blow big leads, or at the end of the game they will crumble, and you never know how.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I was sitting there, obviously rooting interest, hoping that they would pull it out. And when they got that, I don't know if you saw the punt thing. I
did not see that.
Cowboys are up 17-10. The Chargers, middle of the fourth quarter punt.
Mm-hmm.
It was a bizarre, punt returner was about to get run into, but then steps away from the ball. Ball hits the ground, and I think a Cowboy thought somebody touched it, but he and a Charger converged at the same time, and he touched it first, and it was hard to tell in real time. They had to review it, and then the Chargers just got the ball. It was like all-time break, because the Cowboy touched it first.
Got it.
They get it. They score immediately, 17-all, and then they just can't get a stop if they need it, and then get the ball back down 3 at home with Herbert and can't score and throw an interception. They're maddening to watch. So their fans, if they have any, because last night might as well have been 80-20 Cowboys in there.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the case both times the Cowboys have played there now, that
Yeah, out
taken
there it's
over.
going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough. Even with the Rams, who are good and competitive, and they can't.
Especially how close that joint is to the airport. You can go in and out for those games.
Yeah. Plus, that stadium looks awesome.
Yeah.
I can't wait till December to see it. It'll be the first time I get to see it. I can't wait.
I've not been inside. I've been next to it, and it's just.
I've heard it's amazing. So I can't wait.
We make the joke about Allegiant being the spaceship. That's the actual one that looks like a spaceship because
Allegiant is so perfect Vegas from outside and inside.
Right.
Everything about it screams Vegas.
That one is the spaceship though, because right across the street is just like your typical California neighborhood. Like that's why it does literally look like something just kind of plopped down in the middle of the city.
It does look like Mitchell Rails Gladstone too. Like, you take a look at that thing and you're like, look at that thing. That is an architectural wonder.
It's a piece of art. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to go see it, for the first time at the Chargers. Like, I keep looking at them and I'm like, this is the year, like not unlike every other year where you're like, the Chiefs don't look like they're world beaters right now. They'll be there in the end, but they don't look like world beaters. And this team just can't get out of its own way enough to have a good enough team. And with the quarterback they have, they should be a 10 to 12 win team every year. And somehow they're not.
Right.
Just somehow they're not. And last night was the epitome of it. Dak was okay, I thought. He made one incredible play that actually kind of kept them alive. He does look like he's an interception waiting to happen, which is, I think, the good news for everybody. Their defense made a few plays that they needed to make. They're not prolifically scoring, for sure. So I think the Cowboys are kind of in this middle territory where their roster's a little better than, most. And, unfortunately for us, this is the second team now. I wish they would have lost last night. They easily could have, so they could be 3-3 like us. And the Eagles are 5-1, but probably not at this point as good as that record is.
Right.
So this is the hill to climb here is they're playing okay, both of them, but their records are better than ours.
Yep. Right. Exactly.
Those 2 weeks, that 4-day span where the Commanders could have beat the Eagles and got whooped by the Bears is going to be the season. It is.
Probably, yeah.
It is. It's going to be the season.
You couldn't lose to that NFC opponent at home.
Right. Or if they had just won that Eagles game, they'd be sitting here at 4-2.
Right.
And we'd be going, all right, that was weird.
And you would have said letdown.
Letdown. It was weird.
Instead, it was letdown from the letdown.
We're still 4-2 with a rematch coming up with the Eagles where we could sweep them.
Yep.
With the Giants. And so you'd be sitting there, and I think everything would be on the table. That 4-day span is just going to be the anchor that weighs this team down, I bet, for the rest of the season.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Fortunately, they won against Atlanta, which in a little bit I'll get to because I rewatched last night. And, as usual, I actually feel a little better about them.
Okay.
Especially defensively. I feel a lot better, actually, about them. Even though the yardage they gave up, it wasn't just that they had the big moments, it's they induced them. So I really liked that.
Okay.
I really liked that. So I'll get into that in a little bit. As for the Cowboys, they head into a bye week. I predicted they would win the division before the season. I don't think it'll happen now, because I don't trust Dak enough. I've fallen into that category now. I've seen too much now. I think they'll end up with a good record and probably 10 wins, if not more. Mm-hmm. But I don't trust them anymore, and I don't think that he, in the high leverage games, is going to be the one who ends up on top. That's just my feeling now. Everything changes as things move along, but this is like 3 weeks in a row where he's screaming an interception waiting to happen.
Well, the most bet prop last night was Dak over half an interception.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it.
But
everybody kind of just knows with him how the pressure's getting to him. Would you describe it that way with him? That
it's ramping up. It is.
He's doing things that, and I don't think any of us would ever have called Dak elite. I would call him good to great, I think would be an appropriate way to describe him.
A few years ago, I thought he was being undersold a little bit.
Yeah,
and I was
agree.
like, you know what? I think he's better than people give him credit for. He's not Mahomes or Allen, but he is very, very good. And at times, before he had that bad injury a few years ago, he was good enough to win a lot of games. And he was in the playoff games, it wasn't his fault when they would lose. They were losing high-scoring playoff games. It wasn't his fault. Now, these last couple of years, I wouldn't say liability. He's not he was in that 49ers game, he was. But I don't see the high end he's elevating them.
Yeah.
And they don't have an excuse with receivers. They've got a great trio.
Correct. Yeah.
I think the mistake that they've made, their offensive line doesn't look as good as it's been in the past. And I think the mistake that they made was, I like Pollard. I think he's very good. I don't think he's a 15 to 20 carry guy. And I don't think they have a decent enough back. They don't have a Zeke.
Right.
Like
a bell cow.
Right.
Yep.
I don't think they have that. So that makes them more reliant on him.
Right.
And because of that, and because he's kind of turned this corner to being above average, but largely average, it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
They should be a tough cover with those three receivers.
Correct.
Like a really, really, really tough cover. And they're suddenly having trouble scoring points.
Like what I was going to allude to, though, was if you're a good to great quarterback, you don't do what you did against the 49ers a couple weeks ago, or last week, where you throw 3 picks on 3 straight drives.
They were really bad, too. And they were bad.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't like, the ball got tipped up in the
Bosa,
air.
Came in and threw it up himself. You know what I mean?
Anything like that.
They were all really bad, and that's where I think everybody's kind of going, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, you don't regress like that when you've been in the league for as long as he's been.
I think our division has gotten more interesting than it's been because like the Eagles, this could be very telling this week. They don't lose at home very much. Jalen Hurts has lost 2 regular season games in his last 25, but this one screams this weekend. Watch out. And we may hit them on a 2-game losing streak because their real problem right now is mainly injuries and attrition in the secondary. Jalen Carter's missed
such a good slate this weekend, by the way.
I haven't looked.
Flipped back. Do you want to, real quick?
Yeah.
Jag Saints will be Thursday. Fine, whatever. Falcons Bucks.
Al's kill me.
Yeah.
Al, I'll get that.
No London games. We're back to all ones. Falcons Bucks.
The Germany ones must be coming up soon.
I guess
that must be soon. Yeah.
Falcons Bucks, Raiders Bears, whatever. Browns Colts, whatever. Commanders Giants at 1. Lions Ravens at 1. That should be a pretty good one.
That's a good game. Is that here? Is that in Baltimore?
It is. Yeah.
Ooh. The way the Lions are going, it's hard to kind of pick against them. Are they a favorite on the road?
I assume they are. I don't have the spreads up right now.
Vegas will be very telling on that one. If the Ravens are still favorites at home, that'll be very interesting.
As of this moment, the Ravens are a 3-point favorite.
Oh.
They're giving them the home 3.
That's interesting because clearly the other team's playing better, but Vegas seems to know this stuff. That screams to you, don't just assume anything.
Right. Yeah. Your last 1 o'clock game, besides Commanders Giants, is Bills Patriots. That could get ugly.
I think the worst thing that happened to the Patriots was the Bills looked bad on Monday night.
I know.
Actually,
that's right.
They rarely look bad 2 weeks in a row, so watch out.
4 o'clock games: Steelers Rams, Cardinals Seahawks, Packers Broncos, Chargers Chiefs, and then the Sunday nighter, Dolphins Eagles.
Oh, that's Sunday night.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's a good one. That's a really, really good one.
And then
hopefully I'm home in time to watch that one. That'll be a good one.
The Monday nighter is the Kyle Shanahan Bowl, 49ers v. Vikings, and his boy Kirk Cousins.
Oh, they're going to kill them.
7-point spread on the road.
No Justin Jefferson. They're going to kill them.
But anyway,
same thing. Like they rarely look bad 2 weeks in a row. They're going to. That's chalk. That one. That one screams chalk.
We got some good ones.
We got some good ones this week. All right, Cowboys get the week off now, so they get away with one. I mean, look, this division is going to be tough hill to climb in general. But neither, after the start the Cowboys had, I went, see, I told you, here they come.
Right.
The Diggs injury changed it a little bit, especially against passing offenses. They still have that front that can flip games, but offensively, they're not nearly as effective as I kind of thought they would be, and I think that just goes back to their quarterback. So I'll join the parade of people who dump on Dak a little bit here. I really think he's the reason why they're not elevating to a place. And with the Eagles not looking like they did a year ago, albeit with a very good record, it's ripe for the taking for them.
Sure,
I didn't think the Eagles would be able to replicate 14 again. I didn't think it. And they still may not. I mean, I know they're 5-1, but they get the Dolphins this week. Then they play us, and we'll have to see. But we were right there with them. In fact, everybody's really been right there with them the whole time. They just haven't taken the losses. Those first few weeks, I'm like, man, that team at least could have been 2-1 or 1-2 or something because they could have lost any of them, but they won them.
Yep.
But they won them.
Right.
So their record is what they harvested the nuts. They harvested the nuts.
As Eddie Jordan once said, yes.
Meantime, Al asked about Taylor Swift.
Oh, God.
So he got the Taylor Swift most recent one, Broncos Chiefs.
Yes.
He got that. Of course, she's going to show up Thursday night. Amazon Prime. She's got a lot of merch to sell. Good spot.
Well, her movie was coming out the next day, too.
Movie was coming out.
Yeah. Right.
So here's what he said. He went on with Jimmy Traina. Oh, no, he went on with Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, okay.
He did Jimmy Kimmel. And he was asked, what is your philosophy on dealing with a pop star at a game when she could supersede the whole game? And Al, one of the reasons why I hated criticizing him last year, but he was so sleepy and weird during the broadcast. I was like, it needed to be said,
Yep.
because I think he's an all-time great, if not the greatest football play-by-play announcer ever. He's one of them. He's top 3 in my opinion,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, I would agree with you.
So
on that.
he's in that. So I just wanted more out of Al. But like what I love about him is that he said what I always believe too. My theory on all this is people are tuning in for a football game. They're not really tuning in for anything else. It's never about you, and it's never really about this other thing unless this other thing is profiled by the league to be the other thing. And even with this happening, and that the
Which
NFL,
the league kind of was, though. Like they leaned into it really hard to the point where even
they leaned into it as a promotional vehicle.
Yep.
But it wasn't, let's do Taylor Cam and check in on her every reaction.
Sure. I mean,
right?
but
and we're still watching the Chiefs, and the main attraction here, sorry, Taylor, is the Chiefs.
Sure, but the thing is, the league didn't tote any kind of in-between line to the point where when the Chiefs were getting the calls against the Vikings,
yeah,
gamblers were going, are you actually favoring them because of Taylor Swift?
Yeah.
The gamblers literally were saying, why are they getting these calls now? And the league actually had to dial it back a little bit because it literally looked like they were favoring the Chiefs because of that.
See, it's funny. Like, welcome to our football world where what have you done for me lately matters.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It really matters. And this is what he said. I thought it was spot on. He goes, we had to be judicious about this. We knew she was going to be there. How much do you show her? She'd been on twice, and football fans were going, enough. But we were praying she'd come in the booth and sing for us. Just funny.
That was not
and he
going
said,
to happen.
I had to acknowledge it, but what do? You can't fool around. Otherwise, people will say that sounds hokey in the whole thing. We had a shot at her, and I didn't even know how to describe her. And then he went on to say this. It's hard because people tune in to watch a football game. I'm not doing Access Hollywood. At a certain point, it's like, where do you go from here? And I appreciate that he said it because Al, who's great in the booth and is perfectly timed snarkiness. He's perfectly timed snarkiness is part of his thing, but he never makes it about himself. And this was one of those weird ones where he's like, this game could get away from us if we make it about something that it's not. Right. All she's doing is cheering. She's not doing the halftime show. All she's doing is cheering and sitting in a booth with a jacket that probably sold 8 million versions of it the next day.
Probably, yes, because it was a different jacket.
It. Al has his priorities straight. And I think, I don't know if Taylor's learning this or the NFL's learning, but the NFL probably knew this. Cash in on this immediately because at some point the real football fans will go, it's great that she's engaged. It's great that more fans want to pay attention to this. We kind of want to see if the Chiefs are okay now.
Right.
Let's move on. Mm-hmm. And Al's on top of that too. Let's move on.
Yeah. I mean,
I agree with it.
I don't know. You are getting a whole new audience being brought in because of it.
I'm all for that.
Yeah.
I'm not against this. I'm not one of the cretins who's like, get out of my football.
Yeah, you and I talked about it. Like,
I'm not
that.
I think
it should be welcoming.
Yes,
Get more people to watch.
I saw, the cretins are all yelling and screaming, stop doing this to my football. And I'm not one of those people. Like, I'm all for Big Tent. Bring more people in. If this is what gets them to pay attention and watch the sport that I love and that we all kind of engage with, all the better.
Yeah.
But at some point in time, it is then back about the football again. And I appreciate that Al said that. Like, we don't play the Chiefs, so we're not going to get Taylor at FedEx Field, unfortunately. We're not going to get
she doesn't
that.
like FedEx Field. So.
Well, she might now. We got new owners. You never know. Never know.
Lipstick on a pig, but
I don't know. Can Magic make a call on that one? Who knows?
Maybe
Magic might be able to get to her people.
The NFL does have a little bit of a conundrum here because the Chiefs are a literal Super Bowl contender. If they stay together until the Super Bowl, you think this is bad? Like the people that think it's bad. 2 weeks without a game, and it's going to be the build-up to a Super Bowl with her in attendance? Like, I'm just saying, you might not have seen anything yet compared to what could happen if they make it to the Super Bowl.
What if Burrow beats them again in front of her? That would be fun.
That'd be cold.
Real cold. Like,
I mean, do you here's the problem.
Cold.
Bengals fans did not act appropriately last time before that game, and the Chiefs were like, watch this.
Yeah, or the stupid mayor.
Burrowhead crap.
From the mayor's office, here is Burrowhead. Like, you are dumb.
Like, you are the dumbest human alive.
Yeah, it's like the
that.
Braves guy with Harper. It's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, don't shake the cage. Whatever you do, not with people like that. Not with people like that. You don't do it with people like that.
What we need is like Joe Burrow to play them in the AFC Championship and Burrow to wear like a John Mayer t-shirt on the way in. Something like that.
One other story that is, this will be interesting this weekend because based on this, because they get the Ravens here. How many Lions fans show up to Baltimore? Because you may have noticed, while it's become a trend for road fans to show up, and in fact, there were a ton of Commanders fans at that Atlanta game, which I'm not surprised by because historically there's been a big South, contingent of Washington fans. So whenever we play the Panthers or we play the Falcons, there's always a lot of people there, but it was extremely noticeable. And I was actually surprised because the Falcons have a decent team.
Right.
One, I saw a lot of empty seats, which I was surprised by to start with, but there was I don't know, 50-50's right. There was like 30-40% was Commanders fans this weekend. I was a little surprised how many there were because I would have thought there was some renewed excitement about the Falcons. They are 3-2. They are playing pretty well. They do have this crazy stud running back. Like there's some things to be excited about for them. So I was a little surprised at the turnout.
When I looked at tickets, when I was thinking about going down there, they weren't particularly cheap. Like they were fine. But
you would have got in last minute, no problem, because there were a lot of empty seats.
No. And
you would have got a good seat cheap because there were more empty seats than I expected.
But when I was looking in like early September, August, tickets were like kind of normally priced for a matchup that doesn't warrant that kind of price. So that might be
not going to be the hyped home
game
for sure.
This happens though. Like you and I know, I can go on StubHub at 12:58 and get in the door.
You could have waited that one out and got tickets, no problem.
Correct. But 90% of America doesn't play that game and goes $150 to go to get a decent seat for that. I'm not paying. So, I mean, that's the other side of it.
So, for the Lions, it's been extremely noticeable, and it started with the Thursday opener. There were a lot of Lions fans in Arrowhead for a banner-raising night.
Yep.
There were more than I've ever seen at Lambeau, of all places, because that's really hard to get into. Very hard to get into. They must have paid a premium for both of those.
Probably, yeah.
Both of them. Opening night, banner-raising night, Kansas City, tons of Lions fans. Lambeau, impossible ticket, because that's like old RFK, where generations of people pass down the tickets to their fans. It's a very hard place to get into. Tons of them. I want to see what happens this weekend, because there's like this piece up in the Detroit papers this week that are like, we are the hot road team. We're the ones that get the traveling party. We've never been that before. And all the players are talking about it. Jared Goff screamed coming off the field, best fans in the effing league. Amon-Ra St. Brown said all this stuff because if you saw the game in Tampa the other day, tons of blue.
Sure. Yeah.
In Tampa. So they are the hottest team in the league. And I'll go back to what I said yesterday. We didn't really talk a lot about it. After seeing the Cowboys again last night, after seeing the Eagles, and we'll see this week, and well, I think the 49ers are the best team in the NFC, but off of a loss, and they've got the same record, and considering they've already won in Lambeau and won in Arrowhead, there is an argument that 6 weeks into the best team in the conference, which I wasn't willing to buy into at the beginning of the season because it's too much hype for a team that's never done anything.
Yeah.
But I'm buying it now, and I've seen enough of them in the high-profile ones, and then that game happened to be on after our game in Atlanta, so I was watching a lot of it. They're good. Like, they're legitimately good. Way better on defense than I expected them to be, and their offense is good enough with what they have. And I got to give this Dan Campbell's coach of the year, actually, I think, at this point. I know people are talking about Ryans. If the Niners have the record I think we all think they're going to end up with, it might go to Shanahan. But if these guys are a 1 or a 2 seed, he is probably going to be at least up for coach of the year.
The problem is the hype train was too high on them going into the season. Like people expected this. That's the problem.
I don't know. I think if they end up 12-5,
maybe, but it's
hard because they've never been 12-5.
Right. I mean,
like it's going to be hard to not credit them for that. And right now, just from my point of view of having seen a good amount of them, right now, and it's early, they might be the best team in the conference.
Possibly.
They're playing more consistently and better than the Eagles and Cowboys are. The only one that's been really, really shockingly good, it's not shocking, they've been really, really good are the 49ers. They had a weird loss over the weekend, but against the best defense in the league. I know people don't want to hear that, but that is right now statistically the best defense in the league.
To their fans, by the way, if you haven't spent money on your team in 20 years, I would also be traveling to games when my team finally got good, and their season tickets sold out. So when that
this has become a thing for a while. Everyone made fun of us because our stadium would get invaded by these opposing fans. Go look around the league. Go watch last night. SoFi was 60-40 minimum Cowboys fans.
Right.
We saw a couple of years ago, I thought it was nuts when all those 49ers fans were at an Eagles game. I was like, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. And the Lions have taken over stadiums now. I think it's a thing that people want to spend the money to travel to see their team in another location. It's become a thing to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it is still, you haven't had anything to go the extra mile. Now you do. So you're getting these fans that are like, finally, I can go to that Chiefs game. We're going to have a chance to win, and I'm going to enjoy myself. So I think that's the other part of this, too. These fans haven't traveled.
Yeah, it's got to be the hype train.
Right.
The hype train's got to be behind it.
They've probably
For the
never
first
traveled.
time ever, they've had a hype train behind them, and here they are.
Just going to pass this along. Julio Jones signing with the Eagles.
Julio Jones?
Yep.
Wow.
1-year deal.
Julio Jones to the Eagles.
Yes.
I guess just because he's available.
Correct.
They don't have any injuries, right? I don't think so.
Per Schefter.
Brown and Smith are fine, right? So they're just adding a third receiver because they can. Quez Watkins has missed time this year.
Yeah, they just said that he basically is going to play with Brown because they played together in Tennessee for those 2 years, 1920.
Well, that stinks.
That's a guy you still just toss it up to, and he'll probably come down with it.
He'll make a few big plays. That'll be enough.
Right.
He'll spell Brown for a couple plays. Doesn't need to be out there every play now.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. All right, that stinks. All right, I'll do a little film review next. Brady Washington Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. When are you going to talk about my team? Soon, Ted.
Soon.
Talk about them
Which
soon.
one?
All of them.
District Gaming?
Yes. The Mystics, the Go-Go.
His future baseball team? TBD?
Oh, yeah. TBD. O's, hon.
I mean, O's or Nats. That wouldn't shock me.
I'd like to see Ted in all orange. Let's see what that looks like.
He's not wearing all orange.
No?
He's wearing that black jersey. He's not wearing an orange jersey.
Let's see.
I saw the just on the Orioles front. They didn't own them, but the Norfolk Tides, their AAA team, got sold today.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I didn't see like who it was, if it was anyone specific, but they just won their championship because, of course, the Orioles have the best prospects in baseball. So
we're hitting the point in the season where injuries are adding up, so teams are moving some parts and getting some people. Giants just added a tackle, Josh Miles, who'd played a number of years with the Cardinals, and just signed him off the practice squad, so they need help on their offensive line. That's always a very good sign.
There's
for
that
us,
dude
actually.
they played the other night who said right off the couch or whatever because they had literally just signed him and he had to start the game against the Bills.
Falcons tried a bomb to Van Jefferson, who they had acquired 2 days earlier.
Yeah, right.
They tried one to him. And then the Eagles, listen, I always credit any team that does this. Is Julio Jones going to be a big difference maker for them? At this point in his career, probably not. And considering he wasn't on a team at this point, probably not. But he makes them better.
Correct.
He's a legitimate weapon.
Yep.
He'll make a couple big plays for them. That's all they're really asking for him to do. And so I always credit teams that do that. They're consistently looking for ways to improve themselves. After Washington beat them last year, they immediately went and signed 2 defensive tackles because we ran the ball on them.
I know.
Like they're proactively looking to help their rosters. We don't seem to do a lot of that, but they're proactively looking to help their rosters.
I just know certain teams have a thin secondary, so Julio Jones being the fourth option against a certain defense does scare me.
Yeah, a little
especially
bit.
if no one's covering him.
Or just like if he's just out there, he's not even like a target. It's just a problem.
Yes, correct.
You can't ignore him.
Right.
So they did that. I did rewatch the Commanders-Falcons game. I say this a lot. Oftentimes it's either not as good as I thought it was or not as bad as I thought it was. And in this case, yesterday I kind of walked out going, I'm not sure I know what they're good at, that I don't want to take anything away from all the big plays that they made because that's the reason why they won defensively.
Yep.
But, like, you can't live that way. Like, you better get interceptions or else you lose. I mean, they got essentially 5 turnovers, and they still hung on to win the game, which is never a good sign of, like, that you're really trending up. But then I rewatched last night, and I actually thought in the first half that on both sides of the ball, we looked pretty good. This was best. I mean, the point total says everything, but like it was the best defensive performance in its totality, I think, really since week 1.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
And really kind of not close. Like, and this happens actually every year. We always have problems like dealing with edge on the rush. Not this past week. Like they really handled Robinson. He was incapable of bouncing anything out. Algier is more of an inside the box runner, and he really only hurt us late when I think attrition started to add up. They had way more plays than we did. They ran almost 80 plays, and we only ran 50. So they were on the field a lot.
Yep.
So as the second half was kind of materializing in real time, I kind of felt like the tide's turning here, guys. And I think it's mainly because they're good. They're a good run team. They got a very good offensive line. Everything that they do really is based out of their run game. And our guys are probably tired.
Right. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of felt that way. So the interceptions came clearly at the right time. The really great part about the interceptions was 2 of them were based off of pressures. I mentioned this yesterday, and, after rewatching, like, it wasn't that our front 4 that, were, the guys that we're counting on to be getting pressures didn't bring any, but they're not getting there as regularly as I would like on their own, which I think is forcing the hand of Del Rio a little bit to bring some calculated pressures. And the Fuller one and the St. Juice one were both off of calculated pressures that forced Ritter to make bad mistakes. And our players happened to be standing where the ball was going. So I want to give the defense a lot of credit here. It wasn't just, the guy made bad throws or something like that. They timed up some pressures, which I don't think they've done a great job of this year, but they did in this game. And the players were on point with where they were supposed to be. On the Jamin one at the end, he just made a great play. They matched him up on Robinson outside. That's a terrible matchup for us.
Right.
And he made a great play. So I think, for all the criticism that he gets, that isn't necessarily on Del Rio or scheming up or anything, but that one was a great individual play by a first-round pick. So it was nice to see that actually happen. They had him lined out wide on Bijan Robinson, and, Davis played it extraordinarily well. We have a problem with fast, versatile weapons like Pitts or Robinson or these underneath shallow crossers with receivers. Our linebackers can't cover them.
Yeah,
it's not that they're not fast. They just can't cover them. In this one case, Atlanta tried to dial something up that looked like a great matchup, and our guy made a great play. So I want to give him a lot of credit for just making a great play. The other 2 interceptions were scheme. So I want to give them credit for that. Like, they dialed it up at the right time. The pressures got there on time. The throws were put in places where our players were waiting for it. St. Juice was standing where the ball was going. Fuller was standing where the ball was going. Good on them. So I want to give Jack some credit here. I actually thought this was best defensive performance since week 1 in totality. This also wasn't the Bills or Eagles offense.
Right, exactly.
And I know everyone likes to jump on Fields and everything, but that quarterback's not as good as Justin Fields either.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Could he run? Yes. Is he a danger to do the types of things Fields can do when he runs? No, he's not. Right? He escaped one time he got out of a sack of Chase Young and made one play on us. I'll live with that. He made a great throw on their first touchdown to Pitts. That's an NFL throw that you're not going to be able to stop. They got some plays down the field with Pitts. He's an extremely tough cover for us. He's a tough cover for anybody, but he's a really tough cover for us. The plays that Drake London made, a few of them were run-of-the-mill, and a couple were crazy contested catches that he made. So what are you going to do about that? Like, I'm not going to ever complain about, you couldn't stop this, you couldn't stop that. Those are NFL players, and in the case of some of the guys we're talking about, first-round picks, London, Pitts, Bijan, they're going to make plays on you. But none of them really killed us.
Right.
Which I think is a really good sign. And they induced a young, inexperienced quarterback. I think that's their problem, honestly. I think that they can be very competitive every week, and they have been, if they get more steady quarterback play. So I'm still revamping there. I'll be surprised if Heineke doesn't play at some point. If they do that, it does kind of mean they're turning the page on Ritter, which is probably why they're waiting, because I don't think they want to do that to him.
Right.
Because I think, like us, they know Heineke isn't the future for them. But to salvage their season, if he continues to make the types of choices and mistakes that he makes, I don't know that they're not going to have a choice, especially in a division that's going to totally be up for grabs, that they might turn to him and ask him, make better decisions and we'll win, because our defense is actually pretty good and our offense has the type of playmakers that we can win with.
Right.
So they're like us from like a year ago. We're good enough to be in every game we play. If our quarterback kills us, we're going to lose.
Yeah, right.
And if he doesn't, and he makes a couple plays here or there, and everyone starts chanting his name and they point at his jersey, then we're all good. And you can go buy some shoes. God, I bet Heineke wanted to buy those Nikes so bad. God, he must have.
I just want to know which ones that he was going to buy, because I'm always looking for good kicks to match the Commanders gear.
I said this last week after the questions about Cody Barton came up and we played that, and Jack Del Rio was like, "Who am I speaking to when you talk about this?" He was actually very good again. I actually really think since the first couple of weeks where he was definitely incorporating into the defense that, yeah, there was some left to be desired, and he was getting caught up in the wash on a lot of these run plays. He wasn't in the right hole. He can be taken advantage of in coverage, but he's a middle linebacker who's getting paid $2 million this year. You get what you pay for.
Yeah,
okay?
no, that's true.
Let's not turn him into. He's not Fred Warner. He's that's what I hate about sometimes the criticism. It's he's not a Pro Bowler.
Right.
So stop asking him to be one. But he needed to be better than he was within the scheme of the defense. He was extremely active. He was their leading tackler. He had 14 tackles the other day. He was on top of a lot of plays. He got beat a couple of times, but that's going to happen with him. I actually thought he played really, really, really well, which was I thought last week when his name was brought up, I'm like, I don't know if I'm barking up that tree. I think it was in the larger, he's part of the free agent class and draft class that haven't contributed much this year, which is why I think it came up. But I actually felt like that was the wrong tree to bark up last week because I think he's actually played better, and I thought he was actually outstanding in this game. So I actually feel a lot better about the defense. I know they gave up a lot of yards, but they made the big plays when they had to, which is what they did a year ago. The one thing that I'm still curious about, and maybe that was just a very good offensive line, is our D-line, those four, can't seem to generate the type of pressures we're accustomed to regularly. So the plays, 2 of the 3 interceptions were pressures. We brought people.
Yeah, especially the last one. I mean, that was the one. I mean, that they clearly knew was going to work.
Yes, they brought the pressures. And I think the hope is that we don't have to do that because of the 4 players that we have. And I think I'm at the point now where until proven otherwise, we're just not going to get that. And Allen, I thought, was, as I thought in real time, he was way more active than he's been in a couple of weeks. But he and Payne aren't blowing up plays like I'm accustomed to. And I'm hoping that turns at some point because that really, the special sauce of this defense really, when they were ranked in the top 5, were Allen and Payne were the best tandem of defensive tackles, and they would blow up each 3 to 5 plays per game. They're not doing that currently for about a month going. Payne gets double teamed a lot, so I'm hard pressed to really get on him about it. Allen, I expect more. And what I saw Sunday in real time and on film was he looked a lot more like the guy I'm accustomed to seeing than I had the previous few weeks. So that's positive.
It's funny, though, this is just another problem that has reared its head again. This was the problem 2 years ago when they couldn't get the pressure. So Jack started to dial up the pressure more, and then they went on their middle of the season run because that's what they figured out.
Well, we're in the middle of it now. This is the point in time.
Right. This is what I'm getting at.
Right. And then this week.
Why did it take this long again?
I've seen a lot of the Giants. I haven't studied them yet, but I've seen a lot of them because they inexplicably have been on primetime many times. So I've seen a lot of them already. If we can't limit their offense, there's something wrong with us.
Well, Jones loves this team, so.
If he's playing.
Right.
Which we don't even really know.
Tyrod worries me just as much. This franchise has never handled that well.
Less running the way Jones can. Jones can pick off. It's our edge contain part with Jones. It's a problem. He's actually very fast. So we'll see. Offensively, I'll do this really quickly. The first half, I'm actually far more encouraged about what I saw. I felt like in real time, I'm like, boy, if it wasn't for that punt return, I don't know that we would have generated very much. But I actually thought it was quite creative. They ran the ball a little more than I thought they did. And I thought Hal was very good in all of his decision-making, which shows up in there was never even really close to a turnover from him, which was good. There were a couple of times, again, where he holds the ball too long. And, hopefully that'll ultimately change a little bit. But he just doesn't want to give up on many plays. And there's probably a couple times his internal clock needs to speed up a little bit to take away a couple of the negative plays. One of their drives got burned by a holding call on Gates that I think was so far behind the play, I'm surprised the referees called it anyway, but that derailed one of them. The second half is the one where it's still a little left to be desired. They did run the ball more, and I would hope they would, up 14, than I expected. I thought Chris Rodriguez was nice in his spot duty.
I agree.
The first real shot of looking at him. What's missing now, and it seems like, is that they can't seem to target their playmakers or find ways to create enough space to get to them regularly. Jahan Dotson receiving 1 target, I get it. We have a lot of people, and there are going to be weeks where guys don't seem to get the ball, but he's been forgotten now for about 3 weeks running. That needs to change. And it was obvious, and this was the first time that I felt Hal was a little locked into something more than he usually is. And I think it hurt him a little bit because I actually trust his decision-making. Yes, he holds on the ball a little too long. Yes, he's thrown a few interceptions. But, in general, he doesn't put the ball in trouble all that often. I really kind of trust his decision making. It really was the first time I felt like he maybe forced a few things, especially to Terry late, that I'm hoping he gets back to where he was, where he's just seeing the field and make the decisions. And if the targets, go to the places that we don't all think they should go, but it's the right play, then I'll live with that.
Yep.
And they do need to find a way to get Jahan involved. I mean, he's too good. He's so uncoverable, and yet the ball doesn't go anywhere near him. That's got to end.
Yeah.
But overall, I actually feel a lot better about the way they played. Okay. All right, we'll take a quick break. Bram and Callow Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Just when I started to form a really nice relationship with Spirit coach Mark Parsons.
Yeah.
Today it was announced after just 1 year with the team, he is out as the coach. So our two professional soccer franchises are both looking for new coaches all of a sudden. Wayne Rooney left DC United and it took over with Birmingham of the EPL, which is now partially owned by Tom Brady. So that makes sense that he wanted to go back to the EPL and go to that. Makes more sense than what at least initially when they were like, he's not here and we've mutually agreed to part ways. And I'm like, you're letting him go? It's a coup to have him here. But it makes more sense now that he took an opportunity there.
That one still screamed, though. He kind of asked them, are you going to help me shore up the roster? Because if not, I'm going to go take this job.
Maybe, but, I still feel like, I get it. He's British. It's the EPL. No offense to the MLS. The EPL's different league.
Sure. All I'm saying here is DC United has legitimate roster concerns, and so I'm sure he asked that.
I'm sure. And then this one... Well, this one surprised me. We started having the coach on, which I really appreciated. He's terrific in these interviews. Mm-hmm. He's got this long history. He started as a very young person in coaching, ended up coaching the Dutch national team, was here years ago, came back. Couldn't have said nicer things about the ownership throughout the way about what they're doing, what they're trying to build. And, I don't know what I don't know, but I was a little surprised because I know they missed the playoffs, and I know that was an extreme disappointment, for them. They were in this decision day thing where literally everybody was in it, and they lost their match, and it had a lot to do with Trinity Rodman being booted from the match. You went, right?
Yeah, I was there. It was first 20 minutes, she got a red card, and when that happens, when your best player gets knocked off and you're a player down, you're finished.
You're toast.
I mean, and not only that,
and then they needed help after that. If they lost, they needed help, and they didn't get it.
Right. And I mean, here's the other thing too. This is one of those games where it wasn't just 1-0. It was 1-0, and they didn't have possession almost the entire game. So yeah, it was not a good end to the season.
They were not a team that scored many goals.
Right.
So that probably hurt. And again, I don't want to sit here and speculate because I don't know, but I was surprised to see. I know missing the playoffs, big disappointment, but it was 1 year. The guy's background speaks for itself. I was surprised.
Yep.
So we'll see if we hear more about it, but that's what happened today. So they'll be looking for a new coach again.
And one thing I will say is this and I think when I looked at kind of social media to see what the feel of Spirit fans was that they were kind of shocked as well. And I would just say this past Sunday, you and I talked about it going into the weekend. The league is so stacked that they could have literally finished in second or seventh, which was what happened. And I'm just saying they weren't the only bad. It's not like they were a bad team comparatively to everyone else. So the only other thing I can think of here is Michelle Kang now owns the team. Does she have someone in mind? Maybe. Wouldn't be shocked. But
maybe, she's not making the playoffs doesn't cut it for me. I don't know.
Like I said, the whole league is very stacked with how close things were on Sunday. I just don't know how you could get that mad. But the offense wasn't performing down the stretch.
So they did what they did. We'll see what they do next. All right. Stop bearing the lead, Michael. Tell me about my team and its first victory. First victory of the season as they beat the Flames.
Barely. I mean.
Social media, I wasn't paying attention because I turned into the Cowboys, but social media was telling me that the Flames had 13 shots and the Caps had none or something like that to start the game.
Flames were on their way to breaking the first period shot record against the Caps. It didn't happen, but I think at the end of the first period, it was something like 15-16 to 1 or 2. It was bad.
So the Capitals, who came off being shut out in their opener, turn around and play a team that no one thinks is all that great, a Western Canadian team that shows up here for a run-of-the-mill Monday night game.
Yep.
I know it's early, but still, these are wins. And they're getting skated off their own rink to start the game. That's what's happening.
Not only that, it wasn't even shocking. Spencer Carberry said in his availability for the morning skate that, these guys can get after it. They're going to put a bunch of shots up on us. They saw this coming, actually, which is, one of the more troubling parts. Granted, that was the start. Second period, Caps claw back, score 2 more. Of course, Matthew Phillips, who I told you about, by the way, they poached him from the Flames. By the way, I don't know if you'd know the story on him. He's a Calgary native, and they never gave him a shot, really, to play with the big club. Was drafted in 2016. He got 3 games with the Flames, nothing significant. And so you kind of saw this coming from a mile away. He scores career goal number 1 against his childhood team.
Motivated.
Gets the first goal, and then he assisted on the second goal. It was the second fastest a player has ever scored his first goal and an assist in a Capitals uniform. So he was, one of the playmakers last night. Then they hold on in the third period. Things go to 3-on-3. Things go to the shootout. Kuzi does a slow-mo thing. They end up winning, and Carberry gets his first.
So they won.
They won, yes.
They won.
But
they got maximum points. They won. I'm not kidding. I'll never complain about wins. They won.
Sure.
But it hasn't. I saw a good amount of the Pittsburgh one. That wasn't good. Mm-hmm. And this one, I heard, doesn't sound like very good. Home ice, Western Canadian team. It's not McJesus. You kind of need to win these.
Yeah, look, the troubling part here is the best player from training camp to preseason to right now has been Connor McMichael. That's a great story. Do not get me wrong. I've been telling you about him for years, and he finally has made the jump now, right? The problem is Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom, TJ Oshie, Tom Wilson, Dylan Strome are all on this team too, and they're all not really playing up to how they should be playing. Oh, I didn't even mention Evgeny Kuznetsov, who, goes without saying at this point. So I'm just saying, I know it's only 2 games in, but they need more from their big name guys. Connor McMichael can't be the best player on the ice if this team's going to make the playoffs. The other positive, though, I'll tell you from a younger player perspective, Rasmus Sandin has been played really well in these first 2 games. He moves the puck crazy fast. He's been really good. This could look like a steal of a trade that they just traded expiring contract in a late first rounder for a defenseman that should probably be in a Caps uniform for a long time. But from the forwards, they need a lot more out of their big names to really get this thing going. That McMichael, Milano, Phillips connection, though, has been the best line that they've had. If that's your best line on this team, they're going to be in trouble. So, like I said, it's 2 games. I don't need to talk anyone off a cliff or anything, but they need more. I was
a little excited for this new coach and the new energy. And it's not there.
Well, and I will say this. I think it was...
it's early. It's hockey. So you don't know.
I forget who it was. It might have been Ovechkin. It might have been someone else last night that they did ask, hey, what happened between the first and the second? And he was like, Carbs came in, told us exactly what we needed to do. We went out and did it and scored 2 goals. So I will say this. They did credit him with making some adjustments in between periods.
Very quickly, last night did officially end their sellout streak.
Correct. Yeah.
Officially.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I went to some of the games last year, and as the thing was kind of going the wrong way, there were a lot of empty seats there. Now, the tickets may have been sold.
Right.
The Redskins had this for a long time.
There's ways to go around it, yeah.
Yeah, if the tickets are sold and the tickets are sold, if people no-show, they no-show. That's what it is. And maybe that is the case, or maybe they've been kind of fudging what's going on for a couple of years now. Whatever. Right. The majority of the stadium's been sold the whole time. But they acknowledged it yesterday, which... Okay, and I'll just say this very quickly. It's the prices, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yep, correct.
Me and a friend of mine did look into a package this year, but the prices are outrageous.
Yep.
In my opinion, okay? In my opinion. Maybe not for everybody, but for me, who lives in a nice Bethesda house, even I looked at that and went, I don't know, man. It's a lot of money. If you want me to spend that for a Game 6 of a playoff, I'll look at that, but... A Monday night game against the Flames, you're asking a lot now.
Right.
The economics of sports are difficult, and I think that has a lot to do with not just general excitement for them, it has a lot to do with it. And I think this is across the board. It's what's happening in sports. You're pricing people out.
Correct. And not only that, the Caps have constantly raised their prices. And granted, they have been winning. They're not, though, right now. They missed the playoffs last year. It's a team that this isn't just the Caps, but this is in general. You need to get more creative to get people in your building sometimes. And this is one of those ones where Monday night against Calgary, make that the student game or give it youth hockey night or whatever you want to make it to get people in. I am 100% with you. Granted, I don't go to games. It's the one sport that I actually know the most about that I don't ever go in person because I'm working now.
You're working.
But what I'm getting at here is you're not wrong. I've had people tell me the same thing. They can only go to a couple games a year.
It's not a lack of excitement. It's the pricing.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Really, that's all it is. All right, we'll take a quick break. Bray West Show, me at 6:30 at Sports Capital.
Buy my tickets, Michael. Buy all of them.
I literally won't.
What if you win that lottery? Will you then buy all my tickets?
Maybe. I told you what they should have done over there. And
What's
I mean, this is just me as a fan, not a member of, being close to the Caps. I think you should have done some kind of deal saying if you bought season tickets this year, you get a deal between buying 2 years worth because Ovechkin's going to break the record next year. Like, I would have hyped up this year as like, hey, buy some tickets now and we'll hook you up with a discount across the 2 years or something like that. Like, that should have been... He's going to break the biggest record the sport has ever seen, outside of when Gretzky did it. And I'm just saying you should start the hype train right now for that. And that would have been my thought process.
How's your boy 8 doing here to start the season? Good?
I didn't mention him. I mean, I did mention last segment they need more out of all of the top 6 guys. Mm-hmm. He just falls into that category right now.
Okay.
Here's the thing with 8, too, and you know this. There are nights where he doesn't look amazing, and then in the middle of the second period, he scores 3 goals because he just starts feeling it. And so...
He's a very different player now.
Correct. And so...
He doesn't play the game the way he used to. It's been going on for a couple of years.
Right. And look, he's in his late 30s at this point. This is just what happens in hockey. Here's what happened.
He had a lot of Tom Wilson in him early in his career where he would truck people.
Yes, correct.
He ain't doing that anymore.
He was breaking the glass a few times there.
He's not doing that anymore.
But here's the thing that always irks me with this team. It happened last night with Kuzi. Kuzi got ran by one of the Flames players, and it kind of fired him up. And all of a sudden, Kuzi started playing a little bit better and played well in 3-on-3 overtime, actually, and, like, woke up. And it was like, why do you have to wait for some guys to hit you to the ice to start playing better? Like, how long have you been in this league for? Let's pick it back up. They need everything, and especially out of you, they need everything. So, yeah, Ovi gets a pass. Honestly, he does. Because I know...
Well, he gets an all-time pass.
Correct.
I'm going to talk about Belichick in a little bit, and I think he gets an all-time pass, even though, spoiler alert, Teddy Bruschi said they need to move on.
Oh, jeez. But with Ovi, to just finish up that thought process, I just know it's coming with him. It comes in bunches with that guy. And so if he starts the season slow a little bit, let's see what happens. You know what they do, by the way, tomorrow? They travel to Canada. You know who loves playing in Canada? Alex,
where in Canada?
They're playing Ottawa tomorrow, and then they play Montreal on Saturday.
Watch
out when he plays in Montreal.
Well, he likes that Canadian press.
Correct.
Because they're locked in and they ask pointed questions.
Exactly. So I'm just saying, he loves playing in front of the Canadian crowd, and watch. I bet you he gets goal number 1 tomorrow. Okay. Would be my guess.
Let's see. Let's talk about Ted's other team. Talk about my other team. Actually, don't, because I know where you're going with this.
What good press has come out on that team lately?
Get my app. So, according to Zach Lowe.
What if he did reads for his own app?
He must hate Zach Lowe today. He is an a-hole. He must hate him today. Zach Lowe.
What did he write?
Zach Lowe did this is interesting. Zach Lowe ranks NBA League Pass rankings. Teams 30 to 11 in watchability and fun. At number 30, last, the Washington Wizards.
Oh, no.
At which he writes what might be my favorite first line. This has got Candace beat by a mile.
I know.
This is Wizards, brah. He writes this. And normally, this is to tell you how locked in he is. Because normally, the national media doesn't say things that just hit home in such a perfect way.
Sure.
Because they're not paying attention, especially to this team, which is the point of this first sentence. But it's literally on the nose in a way that I haven't heard a national person say, which does make me believe that he does watch every NBA game.
I mean,
I think he does.
It's one of the short list people that I've actually.
I think he watches every NBA game.
Yes.
I think he does. Him and Bill Simmons watch every NBA game.
Right.
He wrote this. Let's face it. The past 40 years have been leading to this moment. The Wiz, so relentlessly middling, their fans quiet quit on them, slinking unseen and unheard to the basement. Where is he wrong?
He's not.
At all.
You hear how I react to this team every day. You want to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
The disdain I need to talk about with this team.
It's like I want them to be good. So I want an NBA team that's good so bad.
But I just know better. As I said.
There's kind of nothing like when you have a really good NBA team.
I know. I've had it for like 2 years.
I know.
That's a lie. Like 4 years total. Like a couple years with John, when John was peak John, and then Gilbert. That was it.
We had one great year with John and Brad,
right.
where their offense was outrageous.
Correct.
And we had 2 really good years, a year and a half.
They were
with
talking
Gilbert.
trash. I mean, it's here's the thing. In this town, it's about feel, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think we could get a good basketball team, but if you're not kind of like weaving yourself into the culture a little bit, I think people kind of sniff it out and they're not about it. But like,
John was all about DC.
Correct.
It was good.
And same thing with Gil. Like, we kind of knew John and Gil weren't top 5 players, but we knew that they were us. I think that's the best way to describe it.
I think Gilbert was a top 5 player at peak.
For like
John
a year.
never was. John was a really, really good player, but he was never Kobe.
Right.
Nobody was.
Right,
Nobody was making that distinction. Gilbert, for a very short period of time, was a top 5 NBA player.
Right, but what I'm saying though is we kind of knew we weren't championship caliber, but we knew with those guys they were going to put in 110% every single night.
Yeah,
So.
and John, this is why John disliked everybody's Brad love, including Ted's.
He was right.
Because he was right.
He was absolutely right,
In
too.
the end, he's like, I'm the alpha here.
Yep.
You all don't seem to realize it, but I am. You
Wolf
keep
season
telling
is me, pal.
Wolf season is me. He's cat season. I'm wolf season.
John wore the cat sweater.
Yes, he did. Zach Lowe goes on to say this. The John Wall Bradley Beal Wizards achieved more than their reputation. They were never contenders, but nor were they some going nowhere so Wizards mediocrity until Wall began breaking down. They walloped the Tom Thibodeau Chicago Bulls in the playoffs when Wall was 23 and Beal was just 20. They may well have upended the 60-win Hawks in the second round if it wasn't for a mid-series wrist injury, then came within a game of the conference finals in 2017. They were silly, sure, dousing each other with water after clinching a division title, dressing in all black for a funeral before a regular season game against the Boston Celtics. They tried to manifest a rivalry with LeBron James, insisting James's Cavaliers feared them. I'm not sure those Cavaliers could even name the 14 other teams in the East, but they understood Beal and Wall brought enough supernova talent and bravado to pull an upset on the right night. With better roster moves, the Wall-Beal Wizards could have been something. They're gone now. The lottery pick that could define the franchise's next phase hasn't arrived. That is the point of this season. They were a ping pong ball away from Wembanyama.
Correct.
The final 6 first-round picks of the Wall-Beal era have amounted to very little, though both Denny Avdia and Corey Kispert should grow into capable role players. Does Johnny Davis exist? We'll find out.
Jimmy
Davis. We should tell Zach. His name's Jimmy Davis. He said, it'll be fun watching Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma battle for the team's scoring lead while traditional point guard Tyus Jones tries to organize plays. Kispert runs around screens without ever getting the ball, and Avdia waits and waits to attack a closeout. Do you think Danilo Gallinari wakes up and wonders where he is? Hell, I could use a random Davis Bertans heat check. This is 2 Wizards, actually. Zach's 2 on it, actually.
Zach actually has it down.
On it. He goes, the in-game experience is forgettable. Only the Wizards could strike pay dirt with the best jersey in team history. Last year's cherry blossom-themed look, wow, and not find a way to keep it in its rotation. And then he goes on to say a few little things, like Daniel Gafford's a good dunker, DeLon Wright's long arms, sneak steals, and he goes, I am here for Taj Gibson cashing golden parachutes as a veteran mentor.
I told you that too.
But overall, he's saying what we all know. This team is not only not good, they're not even watchable, is what he's saying this year. Short of, if you get the Twitter alert that Jordan Poole's going off and has 20 in the first half, you might want to check in on whether he gets 45 or 39.
I will weigh in on my one realm that I know I'm an expert on. And the reason the cherry blossom jerseys didn't get in the rotation more is because they were wearing the throwbacks. And the throwbacks have aged so well over the last 10 years.
The original Bullets jerseys are the best.
Right, but this is I'm talking about the Wizards ones, the teal and gold ones.
Yes.
That they wore on Gilbert Night.
Yes.
And
those aged well. I hated them at the time.
Same.
But I like them now.
But now they look like, they actually look really kind of like, I don't know, contemporary, I guess would be the name I would.
But not unlike how I felt about looking at the Buccaneers and the Creamsicles.
Yeah.
You can't wear them every night.
Oh, yeah.
Then on the one-offs and a few nights to celebrate them, they're cool.
Right.
But when you're bad and you wear those jerseys, you look like idiots. And the same thing with the Buccaneers. Those are really cool a couple times. But when you're 3-14 wearing that, you look moronic.
I also just want to point this out, and I think I said this to you at some point last year. They had the throwback court at Capital One Arena every time they wore those jerseys.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same court from back in the day. Like, it looked a little aged. Like it was in storage somewhere.
Oh,
and they
didn't get a new one. They didn't put a fresh paint on it?
Correct. And so when they did the cherry blossoms, seeing the cherry blossom court was otherworldly. So I agree with him, but the white version of that's probably going to come out anyways. So
You'll like this. This one is completely up your wheelhouse. From Kyle Kuzma, the fashionista of the NBA, and certainly the fashionista of Washington basketball. Let's see. This is from SI. Each NBA season, the league floods the market with alternate jerseys, hoping to capitalize on fans' nostalgia for a team's old look or a successful era of yesteryear. In recent seasons, NBA teams have broken out of regular color schemes and designs with City Edition jerseys from Nike that often featured bold creativity. However, Wizards forward Kyle Kuzma thinks it's all a bit too much. Teams have so many alternate jerseys now that players seem to be sporting a different look in nearly every single game. Responding to a post on X, showing the Clippers City Edition jerseys for this year, Kuzma declared that something is getting lost with the constant variations. Quote, Nike is ruining the nostalgia of jerseys. Every year it's a new jersey, and what gets lost is brand identity. The jersey then he quote tweeted was this one that just says Clips on it with a color scheme that looks absolutely nothing like what the Clippers look typically is.
That looks like a bootleg Wizards jersey.
They look terrible. He's right. They look terrible.
That's a bad one. That might be one of the worst ones I've ever seen.
Oregon's football program started something that works for them that everybody's trying to replicate, and I agree with Kuz here. Some of this is misses. In fact, a lot of it is misses.
So this has been my gripe with this is I don't mind new alternates. I don't mind new looks, but let them breathe for a couple years. Like the Wizards wore that really cool one when they went 10-3 to start the season that Trez was wearing and that crew.
What was that one? The District?
No. Remember, it was a mixture of like all of them. It was a Bullets red and blue stripes, but it said Washington on it in like the new font. I can pull up a picture for you, but that one was really cool. And all I could think of when I saw them wearing it was, oh, that's great. But after this year, I'm never going to see it again. Like that's a bad feeling, especially when you're a consumer, that you have to kind of be locked into whatever year that is. He's right. They need to let these breathe a little bit more because Nike's also wasting all these resources and they keep on pumping out all these alternates
because they're selling.
I don't think they are.
It's all commerce.
I don't think they are. I think they're just flooding the market because they know the more product you have, the more people might buy. But I follow this pretty closely. Go to Dick's Sporting Goods or Fanatics after the season. They're all on clearance. I mean, it doesn't mean they're not profiting off of it, but there's just so much of it now. Why do I even have the urgency of buying it if I know something else is coming next year? Like that's the other problem here too is I didn't like last year. I didn't like the entire Wizards roster. I didn't buy a single jersey because I was like, I'm not buying another Beal jersey. I'm not buying a Porzingis jersey. I'm not buying a Kuz jersey because he was a free agent. So I think the problem here too is they've flooded the market a little too much.
You're going to disagree with me on this. I thought those cherry blossom ones were okay. I didn't love them. I didn't want to see my team wearing pink every night. Like on the one-offs.
He's right though. They didn't wear them enough. Like
a few times, I'm okay with it. The one that I thought looked great was when the Nationals did it. I actually thought the Nationals cherry blossom one looks great. I thought the Wizards one was a little much, frankly.
This one from 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, but now guess what? They're not wearing it again. Like that should be, you know what I mean? Like let that breathe. Let it be worn for 2 or 3 years. So I have the chance to buy it over that time frame. So
Heath goes on to say this. Kuzma has a point when looking at the history of the NBA. Teams such as the Lakers, Celtics, Knicks, and Bulls have classic looks that have spanned multiple eras and represent an identity. It means something that Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant wore essentially the same uniforms. Of course, what Kuzma appears to be missing is that alternate jerseys are all about marketing and apparel purchases. That's what I think it is. The City Edition uniforms, there's a new set every year. Some look better than others. A few are downright unappealing in an attempt to keep up with current trends, and maybe that's where Kuzma's going with this. Several of these look disposable. Few have a lasting impact. I agree with that. And he ought to know he follows fashion. Fashion is sports, especially in the NBA.
Yep. Yeah. No, exactly. I mean,
sneakers and shoe culture came out of the NBA.
Correct.
Right? And now everybody's got their own line or they got a million different variations and all these things. And sneaker fashion is a humongous deal among, a generation younger than me. It kind of started with Air Jordans and it really grew through basketball culture.
I wouldn't even put it on a generation. I think everyone of all ages is into the sneaker culture.
They are now.
I mean,
they are now. It started when I was a kid. the Air Jordans changed that.
Yeah, of course.
Like
yeah.
that changed literally everything. It was one, being associated with him. Two, those shoes were so different looking at that. I know it doesn't seem like it now because they look very rudimentary and old, but at the time they were beyond cool. Like they were so far beyond what you were used to seeing in sneakers. They were all very plain, all made the same way with just a different logo. Those were so different. And then it was Michael Jordan, and that spawned all of these different things, which I think is a good thing. Like the sneaker culture is very cool. It came out of basketball. They seem to be trying to replicate it. But I agree with Kuzma here with the jerseys. The Lakers need to look like the Lakers. The Celtics need to look like the Celtics. The NFL messes around a little bit, but not like this.
Well, yeah,
they really don't.
The only team,
the Browns look like the Browns. The Bears look like the Bears.
Yeah, but the Browns have messed up their jerseys.
We're changing
times.
our look because we changed our name.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, though, we've been that Redskins look forever. The Cowboys look like the Cowboys. They mess around with it a little bit, but not much. Like they understand. The Yankees don't mess around with their look. They know what they are. I agree with this. It's a little, in my opinion, it is a little too much. And it's all in the name of trying to just sell more merchandise. And I don't think that some of it's good. I really don't. I agree with them.
I mean, I think what happens here, though, is it is all about letting it breathe. Like, look at baseball. Not everybody has City Connect stuff yet. And they only release those 4 to 5 to 6 teams at a time, something like that. And the Nationals have their City Connects now. They're going to go on a 3rd season with them. I don't understand why Nike in one sport is going, here's your alternate. You get to wear it for 3 or 4 or 5 years. Yet in basketball, we're going to release 5 different jerseys in one season.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Now, going back to Zach Lowe, which makes the Wizards unwatchable, in his opinion, I don't know that he's wrong, which sucks about all of this. Because I do think they do have a volume scorer, so there will be nights where Poole's going to go off, and there will be nights where Kuzma scores 20 to 30 points a night. But outside of that, it is hard to generate the idea that they are, forget being competitive product, watchable product, which is what he's saying. He's not saying like, I'm not something, because he's excited about everything in the NBA, just like I'm excited about everything in the NFL. But it is hard to figure this team to be must watch, which is, he's saying it's the worst of it. And that is very disappointing heading into a new season, that he's basically saying it's going to be hard even for me to tune over to that.
I mean, I'm looking at teams right now, and I can't argue that the Wizards are going to be more watchable than the teams that are below them, even in the standings.
Right. Well, so he's got Detroit at 29, but Cade Cunningham had turned a corner.
Right. So,
and they were not healthy last year.
Correct.
So we'll have to see. Toronto, they are boring.
Right. Yes.
Agreed. They're typically more competitive, but they're boring for sure. 27's Portland. I disagree with that. With Scoot Henderson in there and the trade that they made, they might be a little better than you think.
Sure.
Like between Henderson, who's going to be a must-watch rookie, in my opinion, and Ayton coming over and Robert Williams, like they actually might be a little more competitive than you think they're going to be.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see about that one. The Bulls, agreed. They're a nothing burger. Agree. The Jazz, they're always boring.
Right.
Always.
Yep.
And speaking of terrible color schemes, I never know what in the world they're thinking or doing.
Yeah, they've got a terrible look these
Terrible,
days.
terrible. 24, he put Brooklyn, agree. Like,
sure.
What do they got? They're similar to the Wizards. Like, they're trying to pump up that Ben Simmons looks normal again. Believe it when I see it.
Good luck with that, yeah.
Believe it when I see it. The Magic, agree, unless Banchero turns out to be great, and then it's a different story. We'll have to see with them. He put 22nd in the Heat. That comes down to what's your flavor of basketball that you like.
Yeah.
Because if you like a tough-nosed, defensive-oriented team, you'll love watching them. That's why I love watching them. Mm-hmm. But if you're looking for flash and glitz, up-tempo scoring, you will not get that with them for sure.
And their roster got wonky, too. Like, they not only subtracted parts, they didn't get a single player.
Yeah, they swung and missed.
They swung and missed on like 4 different trades. So
Pat doesn't miss much.
Right.
Pat struck out for one of the first times in his life.
Right.
He's got the Hornets at 21, agreed. Clippers at 20, although they might be good. Everyone keeps waiting for them to be good. If they're healthy, they're good, but are they watchable? I don't know. He's got Houston at 19. A lot of young guys, I guess we'll see.
Yep.
Knicks, agreed. Boring, but decent and competitive, and probably at bare minimum a second-round East team.
Yep.
Right? Hawks, hard to figure, but Trae Young on certain nights is amazing. Right? Memphis at 16, they're extremely watchable, I think. Pelicans at 15, all depends on Zion.
Yep.
He's got the Spurs at 14. They could at the end be 1.
Yep. Yeah, I agree on that.
because this guy is like nothing we've ever seen before. And if he's ahead of the curve in just understanding the game, they're going to be must watch every single night because I can't figure out how anybody's going to stop him.
Yeah.